How does your intuition work? Someone asked me this question recently, so in this video, we're going to be discussing what intuition really is, how it works, and I'll tell you about the time I would have died if I hadn't listened to my intuition. So what is intuition exactly? Is it a supernatural power? Is it an outside force talking to us? Well, most simply, intuition seems to be our body's evolved form of pattern recognition. Our thought processes can be broken up into two parts. System 1, which is our reptile and mammalian brains, also known as the paleocortex and limbic system, and System 2, which is our rational human brain, commonly called the neocortex. System 1 processes information very quickly. It operates using parts of the brain that control emotion and instinct and is responsible for your intuition. System 2 uses slower, more methodical thinking and comes from the parts of the brain responsible for rational decision making. Now here's the interesting part. For every 200 million pieces of information that flow through your brain, only one of them is processed by System 2. In other words, you only consciously think about 1/200 millionth of what goes through your brain. Let's think about this for a moment. Let's say you enter through a doorway and notice your friend on the other side of the room. You walk across the room and greet him. What did your conscious mind think about? Your conscious mind probably thought, hey, there's my friend. I'm going to go say hello. What did your subconscious mind do? The answer is everything else. All the details in the room, the other people in the room, the art on the walls, the obstacles like tables and chairs that were in the way while you head over to your friend, even walking itself. You didn't consciously think, okay, now I'm going to move my left foot, now I'm going to move my right foot, now I'm going to move my left foot again. You just mindlessly strolled across the room without paying any attention to anything except the fact that you wanted to talk to your friend. But it's even more than that. Merely recognizing your friend is also part of System 1. When you saw your friend, you didn't stop to carefully examine all the details of his face to make sure that he looks exactly like you remember. You simply used your brain's pattern recognition to tell you that the person on the other side of the room was your friend. The point is, even for the most analytical and rational among us, we are operating most of the time using primarily our intuitive mind. If you're wondering where the names System 1 and System 2 come from, they're mentioned in the book Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman. It goes into great detail about how each system works, as well as discussing the cognitive biases associated with each. So if you're interested in learning more, check out the Amazon.com link in the description below. System 1 is the part of your brain that makes you want to stare at someone that's making a total fool of themselves, while System 2 is responsible for self-control and tells you that it's rude to stare and it'll attract too much unwanted attention to yourself. Because System 1 is responsible for our intuition, our intuitive responses come to us quickly and often don't have any rational explanation. We frequently find ourselves coming up with rational explanations after the fact to justify how we already feel. A good example of this was the Soviet nuclear false alarm incident that happened in the 1980s. On September 26, 1983, Lieutenant Colonel Stanislav Petrov was the officer on duty in a bunker near Moscow that housed the command center of the Soviet early warning satellites. Shortly after midnight, the computers detected that an intercontinental ballistic missile was headed from the United States toward the Soviet Union. Petrov responded to this by waiting. It just didn't feel right to him. Upon further reflection, he was able to come up with reasons why his intuition had been correct. The computer's reliability had been questioned in the past, and there were not as many missiles as expected. The computer only detected one missile at first, with an additional 4 detected a few minutes later, and 5 missiles is far less than the hundreds that would be expected if the United States were to launch a full-scale nuclear attack. It turns out it was an error caused by a rare alignment of sunlight on high-altitude clouds above North Dakota. But Petrov avoided an unnecessary counterattack by using his intuition to discover it didn't feel right and then coming up with reasons to support that feeling, rather than just taking the data and going to his superiors with the incorrect information he had on hand. And speaking of hands, your hands, or specifically how sweaty they are, can be a good indicator of intuition. There's a famous study where they put out 4 stacks of cards and asked people to start picking cards. Some cards had a good outcome and some cards had a bad outcome. 2 of the decks had more good outcomes and 2 of the decks had more bad outcomes. It took people 30 to 50 cards before they started to realize that some decks were good and some decks were bad, and about 80 cards before they could identify which 2 were the 2 bad decks. But the interesting part is that their palms started to sweat as early as the first 10 cards when reaching for the bad piles. Intuition not only acts fast, it learns fast. It didn't take very many trials for the intuitive mind to realize that some decks had more bad outcomes and caused people to feel anxiety when reaching for those decks. Consciously, they hadn't realized this was happening, but they felt it anyway. This is often how intuition works. It creates a feeling in your body, like a tightness in your gut or sweaty palms, and the third video in this series will be all about learning how to recognize and build your intuition. But first, I said at the beginning of the video that I would tell you about the time that listening to my intuition saved my life. One afternoon in Houston, Texas, I was stopped at a red light. There were 3 lanes of traffic on my side of the road, and I was the front car in the middle lane. To my left, in a left turn only lane, was a big rig truck, and to my right was a right turn only lane that was empty. The light turned green and I was ready to go. For some reason, which to this day I still can't explain, I just got a feeling that I shouldn't go. Everyone knows it's best to check traffic in an intersection before you go into it, but there was this huge truck to my left and I couldn't see any of the incoming traffic from that direction. The truck was stuck at a red light, so he wasn't going anywhere, but my light was green and it was time for me to go. Normally, I would just head out into traffic anyway and not worry about it, but on this occasion, I waited. I only waited for a couple of seconds or so, and then I decided I would slowly inch my way into the intersection just to be safe. Now you have to understand, I don't normally exercise this level of caution. I don't spend a lot of time worrying about things that have a low probability of happening. But on this day, and only on this day, I decided to exercise caution. As I started to slowly inch out into traffic, a pickup truck ran the red light and drove right past me, missing my car by mere inches. Had I not listened to my intuition, I would have been further out in the intersection and he would have T-boned my car right on the driver's side where I was. He was going so fast, it almost certainly would have killed me instantly. I still don't know why I got that feeling, and to this day it's never happened again, but I'm definitely glad I chose to listen to it when it made itself known. How about you? Have you ever had a time when you just had a feeling and you acted upon it? Perhaps you had a feeling that you just had to talk to someone and it turned out to be the love of your life. Or maybe you felt the impulse to take an action that was out of character for you and it changed your life in a significant way. If you've ever acted upon an intuitive impulse, tell us about it in the comments below. And if you liked this video, make sure you give it a like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss anything. In the next video, we're going to be talking about when you can trust your intuition and when you should be wary of it. So stick around for that.